Good morning. The words of a prophecy in the book of Zechariah chapter 9 read like this. Rejoice greatly, O daughter Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. Lo, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. So maybe some of the people in the story we've just heard put two and two together when Jesus is reported to be riding into Jerusalem on a colt. Even so, I find it strange that the story points to an unplanned entrance, and even stranger that the writer of the story thought it so important to include the details of how Jesus came to have the colt. I myself have stood in a friend's room in a house in East Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives, looking out through the window that overlooks the Kidron Valley, which lies between Mount of Olives and Jerusalem. And I've winced at the journey I would need to take on foot to get back to my living quarters on the other side, when the day was hot and the roads going down and then up again were steep. They are steep. Did Jesus remember this suddenly as he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany, which is about a mile away? Or did he suddenly remember the prophecy and spontaneously decide to make an entrance which might resonate with it? We don't know. But what was he doing, asking two disciples to go and get a hold of a colt like that? He said, "Go ahead and find an unwritten colt tied up and bring it back for me to ride." And he even then tells them what to say if the owners of the colt that they find take umbrage at a couple of Galileans untying it without permission. Tell them the Lord needs it, he says. And the storyteller repeats both the instruction and that line a second time, because the owners of the colt do object when they see their animal being taken. Nevertheless, the next thing we know is that the disciples are setting Jesus on that colt, and that homespun procession is underway, all singing from verse 26 of Passover Psalm 118 that says, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord." Well, actually it says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." But the writer, Luke, is obviously making the connection for his Gentile hearers. And he's also using the same Greek word for the lords or owners of the colt as he is for Jesus when the disciples say, "The Lord needs it." So does the lordship of King Jesus simply override the lordship of the owners of the colt over their own property? How would you feel if someone started removing your bicycle or your car from the drive without permission? How would you react then if they told you they're taking it because a preacher needs it? Let's sing. And as we do, I invite you to picture two guys near your gate simply strolling up and getting ready to depart with your belongings as if they owned the place, not you. The Lord needs it, they were told to say, if anybody challenged them. You may be lord over your own possessions most of the time, but on some occasions, another Lord needs them, and he is your Lord. He is your owner. By extension, he owns your things, your animals, your finances, your time, your choices, everything. Could this be why the story spends so long describing the interaction over the colt, repeating the words in hopes that they will register with us? that Jesus doesn't need to ask permission to remove things that we have from us, for they are his. We're all owners of belongings that Jesus may at any time requisition for his purposes. What are we going to do then when we're made aware that Jesus needs them? Shall we agree to lend our colt to those disciples cautiously? Maybe we'll ask them to sign a document that says they'll bring it back unharmed after the parade. Maybe we'll calculate the hire fees for a colt and take a deposit before we let them walk away with it. Or maybe we'll be generous and then expect a special blessing for our generosity. Maybe we'll simply give it without a word the moment we know who it is who needs it. As I've been reflecting on these things, I realised they're the prelude to that ascent into Jerusalem, all that waving of palm branches, singing of simple songs, even the stones poised to shout out if the people were silenced. All of that fun depended on those owners of that colt making that choice. They had a split second to make a choice. Would they object to it being taken, maybe mumbling something about their rights or possibly even their suspicions? Or would they just let it go and follow it and follow them, and then call on their neighbours to join in the procession, and then maybe even take off their cloaks and make the ride a softer one, or put the cloaks in front of the animal on the road to form a kind of carpet, careless as to what damage may be done to them? Lord, help us. May we always be willing to celebrate and let our things not get in the way of that. They earned themselves a right to be in the multitude of people praising God joyfully, loudly, for all the deeds of power they had seen. Peace in heaven, glory in the highest heaven. Let's celebrate. Just so. Amen.